Hey, I'm Joey Helms, filmmaker and content creator based out of Chicago. And in this video, we're going to talk about how the Loupedeck CT integrates with Final Cut Pro and helps me in my editing process. So it all starts here on the home space where you see the workspaces laid out according to the workflow that I follow also in Final Cut Pro, from organizing through editing, color grading, as well as audio. These clips were shot this morning in Helsinki with my drone during the sunrise. It was absolutely gorgeous, and now I want to find the sequences that I really like to basically put together a compilation of clips of this drone footage of Helsinki. So for that, we just go with the arrow buttons here up and down through the clips, and if we select one clip, we can go with the wheel by 10 frames and find the right in point where I think this is a great shot and it starts well. So then I go through the end of this clip and hit the out point, and then I just favorite it. So I go through this procedure with my other clips and drop them in the timeline to then go into the editing process. So from our organization workspace, we're going now to editing, and this we can easily reach by hitting the one button here on the Loupedeck CT. And by simply clicking the default layout, it opens within Final Cut Pro a window that already has our timeline integrated. And from there, we can just select our favorite clips and put them in the order we would like them to have in our timeline. So simply hitting the insert button here, let's start with this nice sailboat clip, then have this wonderful church of Helsinki as the next shot, as well as a wide shot to establish the environment here. So these are our clips that we've selected so far. So these clips are fairly long, as you can see in the timeline, so we want to cut them down, and the tools are right at our fingertip here. So as we are seeing our timeline, obviously it's a little bit far out, we just hit the zoom button to be a little bit more precise, and then use the main wheel again to go through the clip and just hit the cut button here to go through our clip and trim it down so that we just have the most, intriguing shots in our video. And we can simply also hit the end button here, the cut end, to trim it further down. And so we go through the different steps. If you want to access more tools, you can simply swipe the touchscreen and access multiple pages of additional tools. Since editing is a very, very personal process, you can also fully customize the Loupedeck CT and add the tools that you need and in the order you need it. Once you're done with your cut, the natural next step is color grading. This is one of my favorite parts of the editing process. And I usually start with a clip that is, like one of my highlight clips to kick off with with one of my favorite pieces. And for that, I just use the wheel here to select the clip and scroll through the frames to hit the right spot here. And then simply by hitting number 2, I open the color grading workspace, and it also automatically opens the color grading interface for Final Cut Pro. So as a first step, I just dial up the contrast a little bit, which is super neat because with this dial, you manipulate the highlights and the shadows right away. And then I add a little bit of saturation to just check if my white balance is right. So as you can see, this shot might be a little too warm, so I can just use this dial here to make the image a little bit cooler and adjust the tint just a tiny bit. So the contrast here is obviously a little bit too extreme. So if you want to simply reset your settings, just push the dial and it resets it to the default starting point. So with all this said, my favorite tool for color correction and color grading are the color wheels. And we can simply open those by clicking here in the workspace, and it opens up the color wheels for us. So with the color wheel page open, I'm gonna start setting the exposure and contrast. For that, I start usually with the highlights. And for that, I just hit the highlight button here and it activates the wheel, and I can simply adjust the exposure of the highlights. You want your highlights, the brightest white, hit 100 in the Luma scope here. And then I switch back to the shadows and adjust those so that the darkest parts in the image just hit 0. And from there I adjust the midtones as well to just have a good exposure and contrast within this image. So as a next step, we want to adjust the saturation and pump it up. So for that, we just simply hit the function button and use the wheel to adjust the saturation of the midtones. And this is a log profile, so you definitely want to pump up the saturation a little bit harder. And you see it here, how nicely the sun pops already. You can adjust also the saturation of the highlights as well as the shadows to really find the right color correction as it looked like in real life. And from there, I think this looks good right now. So from there we can go into the color grading process. And what you really know from cinema is this orange teal look. And we have already a beautiful orange sun here. So I actually want to adjust the shadows a little bit and get them a little bit more blue. And for that, we simply hit the shadows wheel here. And the really cool thing is that you can use the touch screen, which is on top of the wheel, to adjust the colors here. And so I push it a little bit more into the blues to adjust the color of the shadows only. And I think that looks good. So you see there's this orange teal look now coming through. You can obviously adjust those colors as well for the highlights and midtones. Let's push up the highlights a little bit more into the orange to have this color contrast as well, a little bit more extreme. So I'm pretty happy with this result. I used the master wheel to adjust the colors, but you can easily use also the dials to manipulate the colors and achieve the same result. If you want to see a before and after image, you can toggle on and off the effects you applied by hitting this button. So now that we have color corrected and graded our first clip, we can simply copy and paste these attributes with the Loupedeck CT. We select our initial clip, hit 7, go to the next clip with a wheel, hit function and 8, and simply press the enter button, and all the attributes are copy and pasted. Now we'll show you how you can achieve a nice S-curve contrasty image within the color curves. So first you want to hover over with your mouse in the center of the image of the color curve, and just by simply hitting the wheel, you will create a control point. If you hover over the next point, you set another control point, and with the wheel you can adjust it both vertically and horizontally. This is much more precise than using your touchpad or your mouse, and allows you to achieve exactly the point you want to reach to achieve this nice contrasty image. So then as a last step, we just hover over the highlights and again pull those up, and voila, we have a nice contrasty image following the S-curve. Last but not least, we add an audio track to our project, and there is a workspace dedicated for audio on the Loupedeck CT, and we can reach this by hitting number 3. As a first step, we want to adjust the view on our audio track by using this dial here to enhance and zoom into the waveform of our audio track. Next, we can use the wheel to adjust the master volume of this track, so to make sure that it doesn't clip. And then if you want to fade in your audio track, we can set 2 keyframes. We just set one at our endpoint here, and then one in the beginning, and dial it down to 0. And this way you can get a nice fade in for your video. I hope you enjoyed this introductory video on how the Loupedeck CT can enhance and speed up your editing process in Final Cut Pro.